Okay. Have you ever had a dream so clear, so real, that you could almost taste it, only to have it snatched away by someone else's lies? That's exactly what happened to me when I bought my dream mountain home, and found a strange family already living in it, claiming it was theirs. What started as a renovation project turned into a fight for my sanity, my home, and the truth itself. The day I signed the papers for the mountain house felt like the beginning of everything I'd been working toward. After years of saving, sacrificing vacations, skipping dinners out, and working late nights at the hospital, I finally had enough to buy something that was truly mine, not just any property. A cabin tucked into the folds of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where fog curled around the trees like whispers and the air smelled like pine and rain. It wasn't much to look at in the listing photos. Peeling paint, a sagging porch, and a roof that had clearly lost its will to live. But to me, it was perfect. The kind of project that promised not just a home, but a second chance. After my divorce, I needed that. I needed to build something again. With my hands, my sweat, my hope. The drive up was a long one. Hours of winding roads, endless forests, and a sky that seemed to stretch forever. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter as the GPS signaled the final turn. Arrived at destination. My heart thudded in my chest. I was ready to meet the dream in real life. But as I turned the corner, my excitement froze into confusion. There was smoke rising from the chimney. At first I smiled. Maybe a caretaker was checking the place, or a neighbor had come by. But when I parked and stepped out, my stomach dropped. Children's toys littered the porch. A bicycle leaned against the railing. Curtains fluttered in the open windows. And then, the front door opened. A woman in her 50s stepped out, wearing a faded cardigan and the kind of polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. Yes," I stammered, clutching the folder of property papers in my hand. "I'm the new owner. I just bought this place." Her smile faltered. "I think you're mistaken," she said, crossing her arms. "We've lived here for years." I blinked. "No, that can't be right. I bought it from the previous owner, a Mr. Harris." She cut me off sharply. "That's my brother," she said, her tone tightening like a rope. "And he had no right to sell it." Behind her, two teenage boys appeared in the doorway, staring at me like I was the intruder. Which, in that moment, I suppose I was. My voice trembled. "I have the deed right here," I said, holding up the folder. "This is legally my property." She didn't even look at it. Instead, she said quietly, "You need to leave before there's trouble." Something cold slid down my spine. "Mom, I don't want trouble. But this is my home now." Her expression hardened. "Then, I guess we'll see about that." And with that, she turned and shut the door in my face. I stood there for a full minute, heart pounding, staring at the wood grain of the door. The sound of laughter drifted from inside. A man's deep voice, the clinking of dishes. It was as if they had settled into my home, my dream, without a second thought. I should have called the police right then, but something inside me whispered to wait. Maybe it was shock, or disbelief, or that stubborn part of me that didn't want this dream to sour before it even began. So instead, I went back to my car, parked at the edge of the property, and sat there until night fell, watching the windows glow with warm light that wasn't mine. When the stars came out, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, I'll fix this." But tomorrow would bring more than I could ever imagine. Because that woman, Karen, as I'd soon learn, wasn't just squatting in my home. She had a story and a plan, one that would test everything I thought I knew about fairness, kindness, and the cost of standing your ground. And I wasn't ready for any of it. The next morning, I woke up stiff in the car, my neck aching from sleeping upright. The mountain air was sharp and cold, fog curling through the trees like ghosts. My dream home stood a few yards away, quiet now. Smoke no longer rising from the chimney, curtains drawn tight. For a moment, I half convinced myself I'd imagined everything. But then the door creaked open, and Karen stepped out again. Robe wrapped tight, a mug in her hand, looking every bit the owner. She glanced toward my car, froze, then glared. It wasn't the kind of look that invited conversation. Still, I forced myself to get out. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. I really did buy this house. Maybe we can talk." Karen didn't respond. She just sipped her coffee and said, "You people always think money gives you rights you don't deserve." Then she turned her back and walked inside. Her words hit me harder than I expected. You people, what did that even mean? I stood there, stunned, until the sound of the door locking broke me from the thought. That's when I decided to call the sheriff's office. The deputy who showed up, a broad-shouldered man with a soft drawl, listened as I explained the situation, showing him my paperwork, the deed, everything. He nodded slowly, then sighed. "Yeah, we've had some issues like this before," he said. "Families staying on properties after they've been foreclosed or sold. Let me talk to them." He walked up to the porch and knocked. Karen answered, arms folded, expression smug. They talked for a while, too quietly for me to hear, and finally, the deputy came back. "She says her brother sold the house without her consent," he said carefully. "Claims she's been here taking care of it, and that you're trying to scam her." I felt heat rise in my chest. "That's a lie! I have every legal—" He raised a hand. "I believe you. But until a judge sorts it out, I can't force them to leave. It's technically a civil matter." My knees went weak. "So you're telling me I just have to let them stay?" "For now," he said. "You'll have to file a formal complaint in court. Might take a few weeks. Weeks." I watched as Karen stood on the porch, smirking like she'd already won. The deputy drove away, leaving me alone in the gravel driveway, staring at the house that was mine but not mine. The days that followed blurred together in a fog of frustration and disbelief. I checked into a cheap motel down the mountain, spending my days on the phone with lawyers, realtors, and county clerks. Every document confirmed it. I was the legal owner. And yet, every time I drove there, Karen's truck was still in the driveway. Her boys still played basketball out front. My dream house, my mountain refuge, had become their kingdom. I started documenting everything. Photos, dates. My lawyer, a patient man named Grant, told me to stay calm. "Don't confront her," he warned. "The court will handle it." But patience has a breaking point. One afternoon, about a week later, I drove up again, determined to take back at least some of what was mine. Maybe clear the shed, or the garden, or even just trim the overgrown path leading to the stream. Something to remind myself I still belonged there. As I stepped onto the property, Karen came storming out. "I told you to stay away," she shouted. "You're trespassing." I held up my phone, recording. "I'm the owner. I'm not doing anything illegal." Her face turned red. "You think you can record me?" "This is my land, you psycho!" The door burst open again, and one of her sons, maybe 17, came out, fists clenched. "Mom, you want me to call the cops?" I felt something twist in my chest. "Yes," I said softly. "Please do. Maybe they'll remind you who actually owns this place." She froze, glaring at me with pure venom. Then, quietly, she said, "You don't understand what this house means to us. My parents built it. My brother never had the right to sell it. We have nowhere else to go." For a split second, I saw something behind her anger. Pain, fear, desperation. And it broke something in me too. I lowered my phone. "Then why not talk to me? We could have worked something out." Her expression softened, then hardened again. "Because people like you don't listen." And with that, she turned and went inside, slamming the door. Weeks turned into months of court filings, hearings, and sleepless nights. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, living between hotel rooms and borrowed couches. My savings were vanishing faster than I could manage. But then one morning, I got the call from Grant. "You won," he said simply. "Judge ordered an eviction. They have to leave within 10 days." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Relief flooded through me so fast it made me dizzy. When the sheriff finally arrived to enforce the order, Karen stood on the porch, arms crossed, tears in her eyes. Her sons carried out boxes, silent, their faces pale. She looked at me one last time and said, "You took everything from us." I wanted to say something. Anything. But the words wouldn't come. After they left, I walked through the house. It smelled like dust and cinnamon. There were still family photos on the mantel. Karen with her boys, smiling under a Christmas tree. I sat on the old sofa, the weight of it all settling over me. I'd won. But somehow, it didn't feel like victory. Over the following months, I worked on the house. Sanding the floors, repainting the walls, fixing the roof myself. Each board, each nail, became a kind of therapy. The silence of the mountains taught me something I hadn't expected, that sometimes winning doesn't mean someone else has to lose. One afternoon, while planting wildflowers near the porch, I saw a car slow down on the dirt road. It was Karen. She didn't get out, just looked at the house for a long moment. Then she nodded, barely perceptibly, and drove away. That was the moment I finally felt peace. Because the house wasn't just about ownership anymore. It was about healing. For both of us. When I finished the renovations, I hung a small wooden sign by the front door. It read, "Home isn't given, it's earned." And maybe, in the strangest way, both of us had earned it. Through struggle, heartbreak, and the hard lesson that even the things we fight for most fiercely can only truly be ours when we learn to let go.